The 1980s brought us some of the best music and artists of all time. We are still discovering new to us music from the 80s.
Today, we are going to share with you some of that music we have found, and we're also going to tell you some excellent places to find these deep cuts.
Okay, before we get started, guys, we need to admit something because we already recorded and uploaded this podcast, and then we realized we had a major oversight.
Yeah, our friend Glenn on Facebook goes, "Hey guys, how about Charlie's 80s Attic?"
And we love Charlie's 80s Attic. We just forgot to include it.
I was like, that is an excellent source for 80s deep cuts.
It is.
So here's what we're going to do. We are adding them to our list, and we are going to talk about Charlie's 80s Attic in much more detail here in a bit, so stay tuned.
So last year when we went on the 80s cruise, and they announced the new artists that were going to be on the next year's cruise, one of them was China Crisis.
China Crisis.
And I have to admit, I really wasn't familiar with China Crisis, even though they were a pretty big band from the 80s, at least in the UK.
Yeah, I'm guessing most people in the boat were not familiar with China Crisis.
There were a lot of confused looks. So since that time, fast forward to this year, we've been listening to China Crisis. We met China Crisis. We pretty much became super fans.
They're awesome.
They are. We have a whole separate video that we have made all about China Crisis, so you'll definitely want to check that out. But in the meantime, we want to talk about some of the other bands and music that we've discovered that's from the 80s, but we're still discovering them just now.
So going on the 80s cruise has really opened us up to exploring artists a little deeper. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, Devo. We all know Whip It.
Whip It Good.
But once you get past Whip It, most people probably don't know any Devo songs, and I would probably put myself in that category.
Until this year.
Until this year.
Yeah, we picked up their album and started listening to it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, so typically what we do is when we find out who's going, then that's when we really start doing the deep dive into the artist and really trying to understand what other music do they sing. And a lot of times we find a lot of hidden gems.
Yes, we have, especially I think with Devo. They are one of those bands that maybe an acquired taste because they're really unique and unusual sound. But once we started listening to them, we found some of their deeper cuts that were just really fun.
Yeah, now my favorite Devo song of all times is Gates of Steel.
Yes, I love that one. So I discovered a song called Snowball that's really cute. And then another hit of Devo's that I like that's actually from 2010 that I've been listening to a ton lately is called Don't Shoot, I'm a Man. And it has these really funny words. Remember that one part? Don't tase me, bro.
That's right. Don't tase me, bro.
Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me, bro. So we have found some new music from Devo that we love. Some of the other 80s artists from the cruise that we have like a new appreciation for, I would say Flock of Seagulls.
Another band from this year's cruise that has some really good deep cuts is Cutting Crew.
Speaking of cuts, Cutting Crew.
Cuts.
Cutting Crew definitely have a new appreciation for their music and just getting to know them better from behind the music. They're just so likable and so nice. It makes you enjoy their music even more.
It seems like all the Brits are really nice.
The British bands have been our favorite.
Yeah.
Okay. And then from this year's cruise also, we had Morris Day and the Time. We learned to do the bird and Oak Tree. He has all these funny dances. And we learned some new songs from him as well that we weren't just aware of before, I guess.
Now, probably my newest favorite way to discover deep tracks is vinyl records.
Yes. I mean, we started collecting vinyl records kind of for fun, kind of to decorate this room. But then we realized the cool thing about vinyl is it sort of forces you to listen to the entire album. Like I put on the record when I'm doing other stuff down in the basement and just let it play. And I've discovered some new songs I would have never heard before.
Yeah, listen to a record just forces you to go from the beginning to the end. You can't skip easily.
Yes.
And you also can't just say, hey, let me listen to your greatest hits. You
Right.
get to listen to all the tracks.
I mean, we bought some that were the greatest hits, but a lot of these albums are like the original ones from the 80s. Some of them are debut albums of these bands that ended up becoming super famous, and we're listening to their very first cuts, and it's really fun. So what would you say, can you think of an example of one of these vinyl records that you've like discovered deeper tracks that you didn't hear before?
Oh gosh, probably almost all of them.
All of them.
But
I'm like looking at the wall.
yeah, I mean, if you just look at the wall, it's like all these.
All
I mean,
of those.
ABC, even like
Yes.
Human League. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I knew, they're popular songs, but when you listen to the album, you pick up on some songs that weren't as popular, but are really good.
Yeah, and when you buy an album, it's like it'll have a couple of big hits and then a lot of songs that weren't hits. And so you get to experience those.
Yeah, I think Berlin's another one like that too. I mean,
Yeah.
Berlin has a ton of good songs, but you only hear a few of the, the big hits.
Well, and the other thing is like soundtracks. Like we got this Pretty in Pink soundtrack up here. And it came in the mail. Keith ordered it. It was a surprise for me, which was really fun. I started listening to it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it has so many good songs from all different bands. So soundtracks from movies, especially like John Hughes movies, they're going to be great.
Yeah, there's a few on my list we haven't gotten yet, like 16 Candles and
Yes.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So there's a few albums that are on my radar, but yeah, we definitely have gotten The Breakfast Club, and that's a really good one.
Yeah. We've also noticed a really cool trend. We go to a lot of concerts, and we've got a few coming up. Artists are starting to do this for the anniversary, especially like when they have an album that's been out for a certain number of years. They'll do a concert where they just play the album all the way through from start to finish.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we're going to see They Might Be Giants, and
Yeah.
they're going to play Flood.
I love that album. I listened to the crap out of that album back in 1990 when it first came out. I had the tape, and I'd listen to it in the car all the time. Tapes are the same way. You can't be fast forwarding, especially when you're driving. You got to listen to that whole thing.
I mean, how cool is that going to be? They're going to perform live that album from first song to last song in the order that they're on the album. I mean, I've never been to a concert like that.
I know. I haven't either, and I'm really excited about it. And I know a lot of other bands are starting to do something similar, and so that's really cool.
Well, it's funny you said that, because then the next night, the same thing's going to happen when we go see the Violent Femmes.
Yeah. Okay. So are they doing their original debut album?
Yes, from cover to cover.
The one with the little girl peeking in the window?
Yes.
Oh, man, that's going to be so good. I mean, we saw them not too long ago with the Kansas City Symphony, and it was amazing, but that was totally different from their usual sound. So when we got the opportunity to see them again, Keith's like, well, do you want to do it? Because we just saw them. And I'm like, yes, we want to do it. It's going to be a way different show. Yeah. And yeah, I forgot they're going to play the album straight through. So, oh man, I am so excited for that. We haven't even told you guys, we have, we're calling it our spring concert series. We have this one weekend where we're going to a bunch of shows all in a row. It kind of happened by
Accident.
chance,
Yeah.
luck.
We actually like booked all the things. We started putting our calendar together. It was like, oh, that's all the same weekend.
Yeah, let's do that one.
And two of them happen to be in Tulsa, and one happens to be in Dallas. So we're gonna be doing a little road trip in that weekend.
Yeah, and the Tulsa ones are in the same venue.
So we're going to the same venue 2 nights in a row at Cain's. And then Saturday night, we go to the Wildflower Festival in Richardson, Texas to see who?
My hometown, by the way, to see Joan Jett and the Blackhearts and the Romantics.
That'll be fun.
Gonna be talking in your sleep that night, babe?
Yeah, I will. I'll probably talk in my sleep most nights.
Are you gonna tell me some secrets?
Oh, yeah, sweet nothing.
Did you know? I forgot. I'm telling you guys this live with him. Did you guys know, or did you know, Keith?
Oh, boy, where are we going?
You talked in your sleep the other night.
What did I say?
You like sat up in bed and you were like, is the fan on? And I said, yes. And you go, why? And I go, because it's hot.
Because I probably said it's cold.
It wasn't cold. It was hot. It was freaking hot. And I go, because it's hot. Go back to sleep. And you go, okay. He also sometimes walks in his sleep. He hasn't done it in a while, but he is a sleepwalker, so you got to watch out for that.
Man, is this Air Keith's Dirty Laundry
No,
Day?
But when we were saying the Romantics, it made me think of Talking in Your Sleep, which made me think of that. And I've been meaning to tell you that, so I'm telling you now on the podcast.
That's all right.
You were talking in your sleep.
Hey, you never know what you're going to get with me in my sleep.
They're not exactly secrets, just like, is the ceiling fan on? Once I had to wake him up. He was full on in the shower trying to take a shower. He thought it was time for work.
I had to get to work.
And I was like, it's like 2 a.m. It's not time for work. Go back to bed.
And then I'm like, okay.
I got up. I'm like, why is he in the shower? That guy.
I do like to take multiple showers a day, but that's a bit of extreme, isn't it?
Okay. We have gone way off topic. Later, we'll tell you about the time when he locked himself out of his grandma's house.
Oh, boy. That's another podcast.
That's another story for another day.
That was in the 80s, though.
Oh, it was. So it's sort of on topic.
It's sort of on topic.
Okay. But talking about music, discovering new music from the 80s, what are some other ways or tools that you use to discover new music from the 80s?
All right. So outside of vinyl records, my main resource for discovering new music from 80s artists is definitely Spotify.
Me too. So they have a few tools that you can use. The first one is called Discover Weekly.
Discover Weekly is really hit and miss.
Since we listen to mostly 80s, it sometimes will put 80s music in there, but not always. Sometimes they try to pick new artists, and I don't always like that.
I know sometimes I'm like, Spotify, do you even know me?
It's like you don't even know me at all, Spotify. Get with it.
But some weeks it is spot on and it is so good, and I pick
on.
up so many new songs. But
Yeah.
sometimes, and most of the time, not so much. But it's still a good resource. I still listen to it every week just to hear what they have for me.
Me too. And then I have a playlist or several playlists that I have been forming over the years. And if something good comes up on my Discover Weekly, then I just add it to my playlist.
Yeah,
I
why
won't
don't you
forget.
tell them the name of your playlist?
Oh, it's called Old School Still Cool.
And then you have another one too,
80s Cheese.
80s Cheese.
I have to separate I had the Old School Still Cool one forever. You can find it if you follow me on Spotify. But the thing is, there are some songs from the 80s that I enjoy that are not exactly what I would call cool. So then I was like, well, those are kind of cheesy but good. So I made a separate playlist like probably a year ago, and I just called it 80s Cheese.
All right, I think we have a topic for a future podcast.
Yes.
I think we can talk about Abby's 80s Cheese playlist.
My cheesy ones.
Yes.
There are some, and no offense to the artists. I mean, they're great songs, but they just don't always hold up as being cool. So they couldn't make the Old School Still Cool one. So they had to go on the 80s Cheese playlist. Yeah, we'll talk about that another day. So Discover Weekly is a great way to find new music. And then there's another one that Keith really enjoys, which I'll let him tell you about.
Yeah, it's a relatively new one, at least new for me. Maybe it's been around for a while, but there is a mix on Spotify called 80s New Wave Mix. And the thing I like about it that's different than the Discover Weekly, it changes daily. Now, most of the songs you'll get in the mix are songs that you probably listen to on the regular, but they do throw little curveballs at you and throw some like artists that I like, but some songs that are not as popular, some that I've never heard before. So I get a good mix of songs that I really like with a mix of songs that might be new to me.
Okay, tell them about Spotify's latest feature that we are loving.
All right, we are loving the new AI DJ.
Yes. Keith told me about it the other day, and I don't know how you found it, but I had never heard of it. And I started playing around with it. It's really fun.
The DJ is pretty hilarious. And
He knows your name.
Yeah, he knows your name. He's a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy. He seems to know like what you like. And he's just cute. I love his little personality. Sometimes he's not always on point with his suggestions, but maybe he'll get better over time.
Sometimes he's a little pushy with trying to get you to experience new music.
Yeah, come on,
And
DJ X.
I think Spotify is like pushing certain artists, so they throw those in there. And when he does start to get a little off course, you can just push the little circle in the corner, and then it just goes to the next category.
Okay, yeah, so we should tell them how to find this feature. So when you're on your Spotify, you're going to see a little circle pop up. Is it blue, I think?
It's a blue circle.
A blue circle, and it just says DJ. And you just punch that circle, and it comes on, and it only talks about every maybe 5 songs or so. So the guy will talk. His name is DJ X. So he'll talk, and then he'll give you like a section of songs, like maybe about 5 songs, and he'll introduce them, and there'll be like, now these are all songs that you were listening to in, whatever year or whatever, like that. We'll play some examples.
All right, here's one that I had.
Now, I'm going to tap into a playlist you had on recently. Something from Orchestral Maneuver in the Dark first.
The Manures?
Manures? Orchestral manures. Okay, he's still working on his pronunciation.
He's working on it.
Okay, that was hilarious, though.
Manures in the Dark.
Orchestral manures. All right, play us another one.
All right.
Here's a round of your most listened to music from a few months ago. Howard Jones up now.
He knows what I like.
Oh, man, Howard Jones. That's awesome.
Yes.
Let's jump to a few songs from an artist you got some history with.
I got
This is
history.
Depeche Mode.
Yes.
Oh, that's accurate.
He knows me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty cool. I mean, it's like all over the place, and he brings in different categories and things that I actually like.
All right, well, you want to hear some of mine?
Yeah, let's hear yours.
Okay.
Now, some feel-good songs from the 80s, starting with something from Dead or Alive.
Hey.
Okay, yes, that was good. So feel-good songs from the 80s. Perfect. What else we got?
What's up, Abby? Your DJ X is here, ready to roll. Some of your go-to rock.
Bringing it back home.
My go-to rock. I want my MTV. Yes, Dire Straits. Okay, that is perfect for me. I love that song. And then we had this one.
Not into it? No problem. I got you. Let's spend some time with an artist you've been coming back to a lot. It's Devo.
Oh.
All right, and this one.
Moving on, I got a mix of stuff that should sound a lot like what you've been listening to. Something just your vibe. Starting off with this one from Cutting Crew.
That is totally my vibe. You know, DJ X, he's got us covered. He knows what we like for the most part.
Yeah.
And we are loving that feature.
Like I said, and if he plays a category you don't like, you can just skip to the next one.
Yeah. But if you want to hear a real live actual DJ with a more similar experience to 80s radio stations, then you definitely want to check out this next one, which is Charlie's 80s Attic.
Yeah, Charlie's 80s Attic has been around for 3 years. They just had their 3rd year anniversary.
Awesome.
And they have 3 DJs.
Okay, so the DJs are Charlie, Carrie, and Joe. Now, we know Carrie and Joe from the Hey, Remember the 80s podcast, which is also lots of fun. So if you haven't listened to that one, you should check it out. And then Charlie does more of like a Casey Kasem top 20 style where he does a countdown.
So let's listen to just a little clip of Charlie and one of the countdowns.
Okay.
You are tuned in to the Thursday Top 20 Countdown here in Charlie's 80s Attic. Today we are taking you back 35 years. We are counting down the top 20 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 from the week of April 16th, 1988.
It's commercial free, it's subscription free, and it's repeat free. All right, so where can you find Charlie's 80s Attic? You can find it on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Apple Music, or the free Charlie's 80s Attic app. That's where I listen to them. So you can just go download the app and you can listen to it anytime you want to.
Yeah, I love the app. I'd highly recommend it. And I love that it's free. That's really cool. So those are all great ways of finding new music from our favorite 80s artists. We also want to talk about on another show when our 80s artists create new music now. Belinda Carlisle has a song out right now. A lot of these guys are still creating music.
Howard Jones is doing some legit music. So is
Yes.
Billy Idol.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys have new songs that they're still creating.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to warm up to the new Depeche Mode album.
Yeah, me too.
There's a few songs I like on it. It's a little darker than I like.
It's like
but-
called Memento Mori.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty good.
It's good, but it's, I don't know. I like the 80s Depeche Mode. So
More
it's,
pop.
Yeah, it's hard to get into it, but it's good, but in a different way.
Yeah. Well, I think they're still mourning the loss of one of their band members. So you can kind of hear that in the music. But yeah, so we're going to do another show another day about new music from some of these artists. But we are talking about discovering music that they wrote way back in the day and somehow we missed it.
All right, so what songs do you love that are not mainstream for 80s artists? If you have them, leave them below. I'd love to hear if there's some new music we should listen to, some new old music that we should listen to. So give us your favorite ones and give us some new things to listen to.
Yeah, I think that's another great way that we didn't even talk about is you can just ask your friends, and word of mouth is one way, probably the best way to find new music is finding out from your friends, like, their favorite songs. I know some of them have already commented on our previous videos about some songs that I have learned about that I didn't know before. So that's fun too.
Yeah, so bring your A-list.
Yeah, maybe we'll create like a group playlist or something.
Ooh,
that would
that'd
be fun.
Yeah.
All right, so thanks so much for joining us today. And we hope that maybe you have learned some new music or discovered some new music from listening to this. And we will see you next time.